Segovia Show.
And welcome to this episode review of the BlackBerry Key2 Red Edition. I'm Andres, and I am excited to finally be able to share my thoughts with you all on the BlackBerry Key2. It's an awesome device, but is it for you? So we're gonna get to that. And in this review of I'm kind of going back to basics where it's more of a long form review. So I'm gonna timestamp this video because I'm gonna have to, because I want to address certain aspects of this device, particularly for those that are really curious to see how it works on Verizon. So if you just want to skip all the way to the Verizon part, find the timestamps in the video description down below, and you'll jump over to that section where I talk about that. So what I'm going to be going over is kind of traditional review setup where there are pros and there are cons, but I'm including what are called strikes, because you can have a great device, but there's always that one feature that if it's lacking, you just sabotage your entire device. You know, the potential for it to sell so much. So that's what I mean about strikes. And one of the phones that I can point to in respects to that would be like the Essential phone. It was priced as a flagship, more expensive than the flagships of its time, but it also brought in a lot of a feature set that kind of justified the price, so to speak, with its materials, with its design, with its screen and everything. But it was lacking two major features. One of them was water resistance. At that price, you were competing with other flagships that had water resistance already with their devices. But the Achilles heel of that device was the camera. That was like the strikeout, the knockout blow that basically said this phone's dead on arrival, so to speak. Even though it has great software support after all this time, it's just that there's just always that one killer feature that if it's not included in the ballpark of those price ranges, then you're already in a losing battle. The only one that I would say is kind of immune to that would be, of course, the iPhone, because it competes in a world of its own. There's the iPhone world and there's the Android space that's just so highly competitive all the time. So it's with that in mind that I say that I do pros, I'm going to do cons, and I have strikes. So I'll leave the strikes after I go over the pros and cons. So you might hear some more pros than there are cons, but if the strikes are pretty significant, it could spell doom for this device. So I'm not going to spoil that part. You guys can check that out for yourselves then. All right. So first off, approaching this differently, I want to address to those in the audience that have asked me, they still make Blackberries? I tell them they never stopped. You just stop looking. And that's why they don't get as much attention as before. It's like, oh, I thought those were going bankrupt. Who cares about a Blackberry? There's a lot of reasons why Blackberry is still around and is doing better than in previous years. So this device, just like anything else, as we all know, is known for business and security. But it's also made for durability and longevity. There's no black glass or full glass design on this. This is a non-slip design, a rubber material in the back, and aluminum frame all around. So this is the top tier version of the Key2 series. There's the Key2 Elite, which is an all polycarbonate build, which I'll leave a link to the video description of that review in the down below. And of course, the keyboard, which in this case is touch sensitive for haptic feedback, and a fingerprint scanner there on the space bar, just like the Key2 does, the Key2 Elite. So the fact that you can maneuver this thing with the keyboard is pretty awesome. So like when you're in a web page or anything of the sort, that is optimized for response to the keyboard, it will move in that way. So when you're typing and you have predictive type, you'll be able to flick your predicted words up onto the display. So that's the difference between this and the lower tier Key2 Elite, and the additional features that are included in the keyboard itself. So this device is tailored to power users and the traveler, because the battery life on this phone is pretty significant, and I'll get to that in a moment. But because of that, for those that are always traveling on the move, especially the business user, that's why this would be a go-to device where they don't have to be hugging a wall or looking for some kind of charger to carry with them and plug somewhere along the way or on the plane, because they can confidently fly and get power through an entire day with this battery. All right, and of course for the typists, for those of us that are either writing novels, documents, emails, pounding away messages of all sorts to our team communication apps, this is the device you want to use. And some people say, "Oh, I type faster on a touchscreen nowadays than I would on the keyboard, so why do I need it?" Well, yeah, you can type faster, but do you rely on autocorrect? And if you do, does it always autocorrect for you? Or do you got to clarify in a following message what you meant when you previously sent it? This not only means you type efficiently, you also type effectively because you're accurately sending your message the first time. And that's what a physical keyboard does in relations to a touchscreen keyboard. I feel 100 times more confident typing on this than I do on a touchscreen. That doesn't mean I type faster on it because, of course, I got to get back into that groove. But the fact that I can still pick it up, I'm a muscle memory remembers the keys on this device after years of not being able to use a physical keyboard, it's pretty impressive. All right, but this is not for you gamers, and it's not for you that are into media consumption. That doesn't mean you cannot use this for media-related purposes. What I mean is because of the form factor, you're not going to be enjoying holding a video like watching a video holding it like this because it just looks awkward. For those of you that complain about a notch here that cutting into a screen that it maybe offsets the display, or for those of you using a Pixel 3 XL especially, how it looks kind of off when you have the screen. This is the worst that it gets because you have like an inch and a half or two of the screen being offset basically to the left. So you're kind of holding it this way to center it to you. So that's what makes it awkward. So that doesn't mean you can't use it for this kind of media consumption like Netflix, YouTube, etc. You can. I'm just saying that psychologically it just looks weird unless you're holding it like this, which then doesn't make any sense either. But you can, just saying, but you'll activate the keyboard that might trigger some features on the screen. So there's always some caveats. So I actually turned off the portrait lock to this thing, or I locked the portrait, that is, because it just made more sense for me to keep it in this way, because that's the way the phone is meant to be used, and that's the way I have it used. You see, I did not activate the auto rotation, I just locked it. Just makes a lot more sense in that way. Okay, all right, let's get to a thing here that people have been asking me on the socials and the Crackberry forums. There are some issues that the BlackBerry Key2 Silver and Black editions had, and 1 year into production, this red one comes out. Did TCL address any of those issues? So the two issues that I want to talk about are the keyboard and the Bluetooth. Let's start with the keyboard. I did not have a Silver or Black edition because first off, they didn't work on Verizon, so why'd even bother picking one up? But those that did pick it up have reported issues with the keys, that sometimes the keys would not respond to a press, or even worse, they'll be creaky. So if they're creaky, especially the spacebar, some people have said the spacebar is too squishy on those devices. I haven't held those other phones, the Silver or Black, so I don't know how the red is in relation to that keyboard, but I have tested the BlackBerry Key2 LE and that keyboard, which I felt was pretty solid on the plastic frame, and I'm comparing this keyboard to that because this is just as hard and like confident and solidly built as the LE, and that's on a plastic frame. This one's on an aluminum frame. I didn't feel any loose keys. Now, of course, the spacebar is occupying a space of about 3 different keys, but I don't feel it squishy as in like a bad squishy. Yes, it's softer to the touch because it's a wider keyboard and it has a fingerprint scanner under it, but it's not something that feels loose to me. I hope I can convey that because I felt the same for the Key2 LE. Maybe because the other one was plastic and it doesn't have that haptic feedback or the touch sensitivity. I did feel the keyboard, the spacebar on the LE to be a little stiffer than this one, but this one doesn't feel loose to me to the extent that some people have said that their spacebar sometimes even stops working altogether when it comes to typing or like holding the device over time. I will get to in my cons about an issue I have had with the keyboard, but I do not believe it's in relations to that concern that some people have been raising, and I'll get to that in a moment. But if you feel that it is part of that issue that the Silver and Black editions had, then hopefully there's your answer that maybe TCL didn't address it to that extent. Now, with Bluetooth connectivity, I historically have had issues with Blackberries and Bluetooth since the first BlackBerry 10. So if my Z10, the Q10, the Z30, the Passport, all of them have had Bluetooth connectivity issues. It's always been frustrating. So I actually used wired headphones with those devices. I've never bothered to keep my LG headphones paired to those devices. I don't know why it did. Maybe it's where the Bluetooth antenna was in relations to the metal build of those phones. Where they weren't even all metal. Some of them were plastic, but I always had issues with them and it was frustrating. And I had issues with the Key 1, but I did not use it to the extent where I can say that it was a device issue, and nobody else reported it. So it's not something that I even should mention that it is an issue prevalent on the Key 1, because my contractor that's using it never reported any Bluetooth issues himself. So that's that. I cannot attest to this one because I just got so tired of dealing with Bluetooth on a BlackBerry that I just gave up trying to even bother using it. And I use Android Auto with a USB, so I don't use Bluetooth on my cars anymore because I rely more on Android Auto with a wired connection over anything else, because I'm just tired of pairing and repairing devices to vehicles when they lose connectivity or when an update's pushed out. It's just frustrating. So a wired connection is considerably more reliable, and I kept up to that. All right, let's talk pros. All right, so when it comes to pros, some of these things you already know. So let's knock pro number one out of the way. Design, I absolutely love it. It's a little less narrow than the Note 9 that I have, and the Note 9 is one of the devices that I feel is more comfortable with two hands when it comes to typing. But this, you can type with one hand or two hands, and it feels comfortable. It doesn't feel too wide, it doesn't feel too narrow like the Priv did. So I do enjoy that. I enjoy the spacing of the keys, so that's a really good design. All the buttons on one side, absolutely phenomenal. I enjoy that. It's awesome. And I give kudos to BlackBerry for putting it all together on one side. Convenience, power, and volume rockers right there. You can see the antenna lines right there, and of course we get the headphone jack that's a little offset to one side, which might look a little awkward when looking close to it. But yeah, I love the dual speaker grills at the bottom, but it's deceiving because only one's a speaker, the other one's a microphone. It's pretty stupid because the Passport has stereo speakers, but then again, that was BlackBerry themselves that did it with RIM. This one is TCL building it, and of course clean side on the other side. So the non-slip material that I absolutely love, because as you noticed, it's not slipping off here, and this is being held at an angle, which I thoroughly enjoy, because none of my glass phones would stay up here compared to this guy. All right, battery. I touched on that. The battery's epic. That's what these BlackBerry Key 1 series are known for. This is without exception. I do feel the Key 1 lasted longer than this one. That's to each their own though. Some have said it lasts just as long, or maybe not as long, but it still lasts very long. So the battery is still a plus in this department. The keyboard, we already talked about it too. The keyboard is phenomenal on any BlackBerry. It's a highlight, and this is of course is better than the Key 1's keyboard. It's the same keyboard you'll find in the Key 2, with the exception that, of course, this is haptic feedback and touch sensitive, in the sense where you can maneuver with the keyboard as a trackpad versus just keys that are on the LE. But both of them do have the fingerprint scanner on the space bar, so that's really cool. Alrighty, let's get to this. I already talked about side button placement, but more specifically as to what these things are, because some people say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna map the camera to the convenience key. The thing is, you don't need to, because the double press of the power button launches the camera anyway. So that's already standard on this device. So you can change the convenience key to be something completely different. Let's say triggering Google, for example, which it does, and it listens to my Google voice commands. So it triggers the Google Assistant, which I enjoy, because when I was using the Pixel 2 and of course my HTC U11, I got so spoiled by squeezing the size of the phone to trigger the Google Voice Assistant, and in this case, just launching it with the convenience key, it's almost to the same effect. So I do enjoy that. I've had issues triggering the Google Assistant on the Note 9 for some reason. Maybe it's because Samsung wants you to use the Bixby. It's hell annoying, but it's there. It's just an extra step that I enjoy that BlackBerry thought about when they put this on their device to make it work with the Google Assistant, and it's great. Okay, I originally had the Works on Verizon part as a pro, but I'm moving it to the different discussion about Verizon itself. So you want to skip over to that part, you can, and I'll talk about that because there's pros and cons to this performance on the device on Verizon. Let's get to the cons themselves over the phone. Okay. For someone that's been relying on wireless charging for the past 3 years and I have wireless charging pads throughout my office and at home, that's where the first con strikes. This is an $800 device that does not have wireless charging, and it's fully capable of having wireless charging, especially at that price range. So I docked that one severely on this phone, because a phone this expensive should not be without wireless charging at this point, regardless of how powerful and long and lengthy the battery is. And of course, you have fast charging on this guy, and you could do boost mode. I understand, but nothing beats the convenience of just plopping it down on a fast wireless charger. I don't have any lightning cables for my iPhone, but this thing has wireless charging. So when I place it on a wireless charger, it charges. And here's an example of a glass phone not staying on an angled surface, see, versus this one that does. But anyway, wireless charging is on this phone, so I've never had a need for a lightning connector on my device, and I've had this for like about 6 months, and I've never needed a lightning cable unless I'm going to do CarPlay, for example. But let me put that one to the side right now. We're not talking about an iPhone. We're talking about wireless charging. So con number 1, no wireless charging. Number 2, this kind of goes because of the Note 9 and the iPhone and my Surface Pro and my iPad Pro. I am spoiled by Face ID or facial recognition. So without that additional biometric, it's a little annoying that we only have the fingerprint scanner there. The reason that's annoying for me is because it's been really difficult to find a fingerprint scanner that actually does work for me. The Note 9 was the first fingerprint scanner that actually worked to read my fingerprint. Nothing before that was ever able to read my fingerprint. Do I have unique fingerprints? Well, yeah, everybody does. It's just that when you work in construction for so long, and you're working with your hands, you're damaging your hands, so to speak, and you're building up calluses and such. So as your skin is trying to repair itself, and you keep damaging it, even if you're using gloves or even when you're working out, you build up you change the texture of your fingers until they moisturize and heal up, and you let the skin return to its normal state. I've had issues with fingerprint scanners. When I was getting a background check for my broker's license, the machine had issues registering my fingerprints. And I was there for 30 minutes just for the fingerprints. It was so frustrating. And I believe that if I were to go now to a government office and run my fingerprints, I'm sure they would say it doesn't match the ones I gave at the time when I was doing my background check. No doubt that was going to be an issue. So that's the kind of background that I have when it comes to fingerprint scanners. I've always hated them, and I'm glad that I've been working less on the field to be able to give a chance for my fingerprints to return to their normal state. This one, I'm actually really happy that is able to read my fingerprint. So does the Note 9, but the convenience of the facial recognition that I use on the Note 9, that I use on the iPad Pro, that I use on Windows Hello, and that I use on my iPhone is outstanding. And I'm kind of lamenting that it's not here. This was kind of like a step down for me because I've been using it for months now, and now I'm not having it. I kept lifting the iPhone, the BlackBerry to my face, and it wasn't registering. Like, oh yeah, duh, it doesn't have it. So yes, I knocked that down. It's not that big of a deal, but this year I think that more biometric recognition for the user input to unlock a device is going to be a bigger deal and expected on devices. So we'll see what happens there. This next con is the one that just irks the hell out of me. These grills should be stereo speakers. And for this price range, honestly, anything over $650 or $649, let's use that as a threshold, right? You should not have a mono speaker. Anyone that has a mono speaker should be ducked down. Guys, I'm an audiophile, okay? I use FLAC files. I don't rely on streaming services to get my music because it doesn't satisfy the quality of what I'm searching for through the cans that I use to listen to the music, to when I feed it through my Bose speakers or through my Philips home entertainment system or my AKG and Audio-Technica headphones. It drives me nuts when someone charges so much for a phone and only puts one speaker on it. I'm not entirely happy with the so-called stereo speakers on my Note 9 too. It almost feels like the same setup as the U11, where one's a tweeter, the other one's kind of like the bass and the lower part of the music, because one speaker is louder than the other, and that has a lot to do with the direction the sound's firing out from the Note 9. I feel more acoustically balanced on the iPhone XR that I use. Yes, I call it the XR, not the 10R. So the one that had the better experience was the Google Pixel 2 when it comes to proper stereo speakers that are facing you and it's equal. And that's why I still have my favorite Android of all time, the HTC One M8, because nothing beats those speakers. And if I want to use headphones, I can, and they just sound awesome on the HTC One M8 after all these years. And we're still trying to figure that out for audio nowadays, especially trying to get rid of the headphone jack. It's like, well, what do we do now for audio? Well, get it right, man. Like whether you go one way or another, just get it right. Bluetooth is not there yet. Bluetooth 5.0 is not there yet with the transfer rates to satisfy uncompressed audio files. So that's my rant as an audiophile. That's my rant. Okay. The next con over, touchscreen lag. So is this a feature? I complained about the same thing on the Key2 Elite. I thought it was the processor. So when I double tap the screen, it takes a little bit to unlock the screen. It's a little frustrating. Sometimes it unlocks faster with my fingerprint, but I find myself double tapping the screen most of the time because it won't read my fingerprint. But why does it take that long to wake up the screen? So I don't know if it's a touchscreen lag or anything, but I did find issues with that. But the screen itself is still very responsive, as you see there. So I don't know what that is. So it must be a thing, but it's frustrating. I hate it. It's just, I want it to be instantly reacting to what I'm doing, because when I'm getting messages and I want to read it, I want to tap it as quickly as I can when it's opening. Look, I know we shouldn't be doing this, but we all do it. When we're stopped at a red light and you know that you have limited time and you need to see it, you have to respond or call somebody back if a message came through, and if you don't have Android Auto or it's not showing you in your car for some reason, you want to see what message was that. Double tap. I'm running out of time. I'm stopped at a red light. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And then it finally pops up so you can see a preview. It might be too late by then. You're either being honked at or something. So all those seconds do count. So this I do not find productive. So if this has to be addressed, BlackBerry, address that, because it's annoying. So it's not a hardware issue as I or previously imagined, because the screen isn't lagging in that sense, but there is a noticeable lag when unlocking the device when you're tapping on the screen. Okay, next con and my last con on this list. It is the keyboard. All right. I talked about the issues that some people have expressed with the silver and black editions that I did not feel is carried over to this one. I believe that the experience that I'm having with this keyboard in terms of issues has more to do with the, what is that? Software. So let's see if I can get to it. I should mention that I've actually had this phone freeze on me a few times for no apparent reason. So let's open OneNote, because here's where I'm doing some notes. Okay. All right, so when I'm typing, and I'm going to do this in front of a camera, so I'm going to type a little slow, but hopefully it'll duplicate. If not, I'm going to crop in a video that I did about this sometime sooner. This is me typing. It's not pulling up the thing, but there it is. See, it did it. Okay. It has to be a software issue. I have experienced the most annoying lag in swiping up when using predictive type. So now I'm going to type a little faster and let's see if it continues giving me that issue. This is me typing on the BlackBerry keyboard. Oop. Okay, so it disappeared. Come on. Okay. BlackBerry keyboard. It's supposed to be keyboards, but the point is, it gave you a little bit of a hint that when I'm typing emails out like crazy, and this thing is learning as I type, it didn't matter which area I was trying to swipe on. I would find myself swiping, and then like the third or fourth time I'll finally flick the word up. I'm like, why? And I experienced this in text messaging, in emailing, in here on OneNote, anything that I was typing on, it was having that issue and it was driving me nuts. And here's the other thing. So this, I don't know if this is attributed to all of you that have been complaining about the spacebar. I have had issues sometimes that when I'm typing and I hit the spacebar, I wouldn't get a space. And then I would notice that I'm typing a longer word than I intended. Like, wait a minute, no, I hit the spacebar. So I go back and hit the spacebar. Yeah. It's really hard to type in front of a camera. Keyboard experience. See, there it is again. No, I didn't do that. BlackBerry. Do whatever. See, and there it goes again. So I had about 2 or 3 issues there, but no issues with the spacebar. So I wonder if there is, if this has to be more of a software issue than anything else. But this is one of the reasons why I haven't been using the device as my main phone as I had hoped to over the time I was reviewing it. Yes, I'm in the office and the phone's ringing. Yes. Nobody home but us pancakes. I don't remember where I got that line from, but anyway. How much longer is that phone gonna ring? You have no idea how much spam we get in this office. It's crazy. Robocalls, all the sorts. And one of our robot filter didn't pick that one up, and I recognize that number. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. I'm talking about the phone here. So the issue again with the keyboard that I've been experiencing is I believe it to be software based. So this is where I'll expand a little bit on what I believe about the keyboard. The keyboard, because of all these moving parts, like in the office, for example, when you're in an environment where you're not in a windy place, there'll still be stuff that gets underneath the keyboard. And I use a mechanical keyboard, one of the best out there, and I have tools to keep cleaning it. So I have a brush for the keyboard, and I also have an air can sprayer to clean the keyboard periodically because just stuff builds up over time. This phone is being carried out into environments that are less than agreeable compared to an office environment. So I imagine some things might be getting under the keyboard to affect the typing experience. But that still does not absolve as to why some people might have a spacebar issue out the gate. But if you held onto your phone over time and you're having issues with certain keys, I believe that would be why. Because it's really hard to seal all these parts, which leads me to the strikes. All right, guys, this is where I get to the strikes. It's strike one for this device was that Android Auto didn't work. It works now. It took forever to get it working, and I believe the reason why is because what I labeled as my second strike. So strike number one, Android Auto wasn't working. Again, it's working now. So maybe I could take that strike off, but let me explain to you what happened. I never experienced this with any other Android device. I take the cable of my car, I connect it to the device. Android Auto should be popping up. Instead, the phone's asking me if I want to charge or transfer files to the car. Well, I don't know. I've never been asked that by other phones because it should just register like I'm connecting it to a vehicle. So therefore, it should be kind of like mirroring it, so to speak, because it's Android Auto. So I picked files, and that's fine. Eventually, in the 4th or 5th drive, that means turning off the car and turning it back on in different drives. The phone did recognize that I had Android Auto capable phone, car, and it was connecting and asking, do you want to launch Android Auto? I'm like, sure. But it wouldn't work. And it originally didn't work because of DTEC. DTEC was doing a good job in protecting my phone from outside data intrusion. Or so it thought. In this case, I'm just communicating with Android Auto. Now, there's some what is called overlays that you can authorize on the phone. There's so many permissions on an Android device that you can give to an app, but there are the deepest permissions that very few apps can do, and Android Auto is one of them. What I mean by that is if you ever go to the deepest and deepest of settings, you'll find very few apps on the list, maybe 5 at most 10 depending on what kind of apps you have, that have nearly complete control over what they're able to do within the phone. Android Auto is one of them. I gave it all of those permissions. I even went to DTech when I found out that it was DTech that was giving me a summary after I stopped driving, and it said, hey, you had sensitive data being accessed by an outside source. And it wasn't an outside source, it was Android Auto. So I gave it all the permissions, as you can see there. But every time I turn off the car and I disconnect the phone, it would tell me, hey, your information was sensitive information on phone and calendar was accessed by Android Auto. Well, yeah, I know because I had it connected, but that's fine because now DTech is allowing me. But even after I had allowed DTech to allow me, there were issues in trying to get Android Auto to work properly with my car. And I believe that has more to do with strike number 2. Strike number 2 is what is the internal storage on this device. The BlackBerry Key2 Red Edition is 120 gigabytes onboard storage, which is pretty amazing because it's double the storage of what the previous editions were. But that flash storage is through a hardware called Embedded Multimedia Card, or eMMC. The Samsung Galaxy Note 9 that I use is universal flash storage, and if I'm not mistaken, it's 3.0 or 3.1. And that difference is significant because as someone like me that works in construction, real estate, and property management and handling media files on a daily basis and transferring gigabytes of data onto my computer all the time, I don't rely on Wi-Fi Direct. I don't rely on the Wi-Fi network. I have to rely on USB 3.0 to get the files transferred as quickly as possible because anything over a network is going to be way too slow, especially since upload speeds are significantly slower than download speeds. So the same data that I transferred from my Note 9 to my computer that took 45 minutes worth in transferring all that gigabyte of data took 2.5 hours on this guy. Then I'm like, why? And that's when I looked it up and confirmed that this was not using UFS, it was using eMMC. I'm like, crud, man. So if you're not one of those that transfers data like I do, then this is not going to be a concern for you. This is a major deal breaker for me because I do this daily. So this is a huge letdown in that it's not UFS. And I believe that might have been why I had issues with Android Auto. Don't quote me on it. I'm just letting you know that any Android device that I've used with UFS has not had those kind of issues with Android Auto in my vehicle. But this guy did, and it's an eMMC. So remember, that's an embedded multimedia card. So I think of it as a very flashy SD card that's been encrypted to just be registered as an internal flash storage. You can do that with your Surface when you put in a memory card and no one else can read it, and it becomes embedded, so to speak, into the Surface. But the transfer rates are still slower than the embedded storage, flash storage that's already on the Surface device. That's the best example I can give you as to what issues I had with it. Okay, here comes strike 3. There might be a strike 4, or I'll replace the Android Auto strike because I told you I got it working finally, right? Strike number 3, though, when it was originally this way, no water resistance. I know. I didn't expect this device to have water resistance, but just like the issues with the wireless charging, I can get around the wireless charging. Wired charging is still faster than wireless charging. I know that. And you can do boost mode, and the thing charges so quick and you just go. And because the lengthy battery life, you don't have to worry about it. But what about the times that you're so exhausted you forget to connect it? Or you're so exhausted you knock out on the couch like I did the other day and woke up the next morning and like, I didn't charge my phone. It's after a hard working day, you just never ever know. Especially if you leave music playing on the phone in the background and you knock out and you find out like, oops, the phone's been working all night long. All right, so no water resistance is a deal breaker for me because every device that I use is water resistant. It's something that I kind of expect now, especially because I have little ones. I've had it too many times happen, even from employees coming to me. It's like, hey, yeah, man, remember that property we're working at? There's a pool there. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just got you that phone 1 week ago. Don't tell me you dropped it in the pool. Yes, I did. Great. It's like, It happens, okay? Life happens, and if it's an expensive device over $650, now they're $1,000, and there's no water resistance on it. I'm sorry, y'all, it doesn't make much sense. And how much is this guy? $700 plus with taxes? I think it was $750 out the gate. This needs water resistance. I don't expect it, okay, with all of these moving parts here. There's just way too many moving parts, but if BlackBerry is able to accomplish that, awesome. But until that day finally comes, I'll always have reservations using something without water resistance, because it doesn't matter whether you're on a job site or at home and the kids get access to your phone, because kids are curious by nature and they just love dipping everything in water. You just never ever know. And with these devices being expensive and getting more expensive every single year, everybody keeps trying to push it towards $1,000 and beyond. You just never know. Like the Galaxy Fold, $2,000 for a phone that wasn't even water resistant. That was a huge cause for concerns. Like, dude, what am I paying for? Aren't you guys the ones that basically popularized water resistance, and you couldn't get it done right on that one? Too many moving parts. Well, yeah, but still, $2,000 for a super hypersensitive device. No wonder they were calling it luxury. So yeah, that's the deal breaker for me. Those are the 3 strikes that I put in. So in other words, that's me. That's me, okay? That's just me. That doesn't mean the phone itself is any lesser than many other devices out there. This phone is impressive and it's amazing. And that does it for my pros, cons, and strikes, okay? This is the part where I'm stamping about the Verizon functionality of this phone. Okay, for those of you that see my video showing that it possibly works on Verizon, and that was a reaction to the fact that Best Buy was announcing that this thing was compatible on Verizon. If you go today, as of this recording, you're gonna find negative reviews on the post because people saying that it doesn't work on Verizon. I've been following this story for so long, and I was excited to finally get my hands on a BlackBerry that can work on Verizon. The Key2 at least did not work for me. It was just too underpowered to be able to handle my tasks. This guy can handle them, and it handles them very well, but it doesn't handle my network. So when I saw that on Best Buy, I had to be a typo. I even mentioned that in my previous video. Amazon had it right. So maybe it was an accidental copy paste from the BlackBerry Key2 LE post onto this one on Best Buy. But I decided to take the chance. And that reaction video of me using it was literally out the box. I wanted to get that a real reaction, an honest reaction, not an aftermath kind of thing, so you guys can see for yourself what I experienced when I took it out. And I'll get to how you can get that to work on your Key2 if you intend to pick one up. The fact of the matter is that this device, on purpose, on BlackBerry Limited website, when you go to blackberrymobile.com, you're gonna find that this does not say it's compatible with Verizon. Now, I'm in the Los Angeles area, the metropolitan area, so therefore we have more bandwidth and antennas here to handle that kind of service than anywhere else. It's like usually rural areas in comparison, but Verizon's been rolling out what is 5G LTE, what they call 5G LTE, but I actually been to, I was invited to a private meeting with Verizon corporate. I was able to talk to the technicians about this sort of thing, and they did show me, and it was true, that their 5G LTE is going to be the real deal, not like the fake stuff that AT&T is putting out and what Sprint is desperately trying to put out there as well, and what T-Mobile is hoping to get out the door. No, what Verizon is doing is true 5G in a sense, but let's not kid ourselves. It really just is 4G LTE plus, so to speak. So to get that deployed, they do have different antennas in the area, and they're deploying in certain areas like Houston and here Los Angeles, and I forget the third other city they've been testing it on. So I wonder if that's what's contributed to this phone being able to work. So here's what's worked on Verizon. I can do the phone calls. I can do the data. I can do voice and data simultaneously. That's pretty awesome. So I was on a phone call while I was navigating Google Maps and opening a web page and just testing out Instagram and Facebook, and it was all working in real time. That's great. Text messaging is a mixed bag because over time, it actually disappeared. I had the ability to get SMS to work. I was able to send text messages out. I was able to send picture messages out, MMS. I was not able to get MMS back. And as of this recording, I am not even able to get SMS back. It's like, well, Andres, who uses text messaging anymore? Well, text messaging is still the way you authenticate certain things, especially if you're using two-step verification. And without that verification step that where the companies can text you, you might have to go through the route where they call your approved device. But sometimes you don't have that luxury to answer the phone. So the text messaging is the most efficient, effective way to get two-step verification on your device. And if you cannot receive an SMS, you're SOL. So that is a big deal. So for those of you that were hoping to be able to use this without a hiccup on Verizon, you'll be able to do the voice, you'll be able to do the data, but you won't be able to do the SMS or MMS. So that's the big bummer. Now here's the biggest one for me. Hotspot. You can trigger it, you can get it to connect to your device like I did to my Pixelbook and my Surface. You won't get any data to transfer. So it doesn't work. Hotspotting has been a fail. I have not been able to get that up and running on this device with Verizon. Last part, Wi-Fi calling. I can get advanced calling to work. I cannot get Wi-Fi calling to work. And I don't think I should explain why Wi-Fi calling is important, but I didn't even see it anywhere in the settings menu here. So I'm wondering if that's like an update that BlackBerry has to push out, because I didn't see anything on this for an option for Wi-Fi calling. And I switched the SIM cards for Mint Mobile, which is powered by T-Mobile in my area, or Sprint if I go across the street. And Wi-Fi calling doesn't appear on any of those things, but the APN settings and the apps from Mint and T-Mobile do pop up to the phone when I put the T-Mobile SIM in here. And when I had issues with text messaging, what I did was I put the Mint SIM mobile card in here, and then I put the Verizon card back in here, and I didn't get my text messaging to restore. So I still got voice and data simultaneously, but I couldn't get the text messaging to start back up again. So that's kind of been a bummer that I couldn't keep that working. So how can you get it to work in that respect? Like, you cannot pick one of these guys up and go to Verizon and they'll connect it for you. Someone had posted that, oh, I took it and it didn't work out, and then Verizon took it down from the compatibility list. I do not believe that in a second that the Verizon put that the BlackBerry Key2 works on Verizon. I do believe and know that the BlackBerry Key2 LE does, without a hiccup, work on Verizon. So I'm wondering if there was confusion there, because some of these, look, they're just sales guys, they're not tech guys. And some of the guys at Best Buy are also just sales reps, they're not tech people. So I don't take their word as a technician. For anybody that can read specifications and the disclaimers on these devices, you'll know for sure what does and what doesn't. And if it doesn't, that's false advertising if they're saying otherwise, okay? So how do you get it to work as I did on Verizon, though, where you can still use voice and data, and that's enough for you? Great. I use Google Voice anyway, so I rely on that. So how can you get that to work for you? Well, you don't go to Verizon and ask them to activate your phone. You have to use an active SIM card from an active line and then put it on that phone. That's the only way to get it to work, okay? And that's how I've been able to get it to work. That's how I was able to get a bunch of unlocked phones I've ever purchased to work on Verizon without a problem. HTC U11, the Galaxy S7 Edge, the Samsung Note 9. I've had unlocked devices that were rated to work on Verizon, that did work on Verizon, just that Verizon didn't whitelist it themselves. I had to take my active SIM card from my active phone and put it into my new device, and it worked without a problem. It'll just register as an unknown device on Verizon's side. That's all it ever does. So that's my FYI about Verizon and the BlackBerry Key2 and how you could possibly get it to work. Just remember, there's limitations, and depending on where you are, you might not even be able to get the same experience that I did, so your mileage will vary. Okay, so let's wrap this all up. Conclusion time. Is this a phone I can recommend for anybody? If you're in the network where this can work, heck yeah, man. This is the phone that can actually work for you. It's priced like a flagship, but the internals are mid-range or upper mid-range. It's so ridiculous, like upper middle class, whatever. The point is that, yes, you can get this thing to handle your day-to-day operations, because the 6 gigabytes of RAM and the Snapdragon 660 is still fully capable of powering you through. Just for gaming, come on. This is not one of those phones, and is not even tailored to that, so don't even think about it in that respect. But at least you'll be able to get everything else out of the phone. So I can see myself carrying this guy, if it worked properly for me, as my main and only phone. Because the cameras, notice that I'm mentioning about the cameras, I think the cameras are pretty good on this guy. I don't see the complaints that everybody else had. Yeah, when you compare it against the top rated cameras, of course, it's not the same thing. But hey, this is a fully capable camera, so I don't have any complaints about that. So that out of the way. So yes, I can vouch for that. But for me, at $750, and I can use it on Verizon, obviously, this is not a keeper for me. It's not a phone that works on Verizon as Best Buy advertised, but I gave it a shot, and I know someone else in my office that could probably use it that has GSM, and I'm sure they'll have a very different experience. So I'll talk to them about it, see if they'll pick it up for me. But anyway, that's that for this thing. I'm hoping that third time's the charm. So the BlackBerry Key 3 will address a lot of the issues that a lot of people have been having, and some of the issues that I found, because I didn't think that the only way to type on this being the keyboard, that I'll be having issues with the keyboard. So I hope that is not the case going forward. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Like, share, and subscribe to stay in the know. This is one of the very few long form reviews that I'll be doing on tech. So whenever I do review a device, it'll be along the lines of this kind of review. But more so than often than not, I'm going to be doing software talk and how-to videos. And that's with a heavy emphasis on real estate as well. But whenever there's tech news that just piques my interest, be sure to know that I'll be addressing that as well in a different form or different approach, but still on this channel, the Segovia Show, where I talk about everything that interests me with the real estate spin. Just make sure to check out my podcast at any of the podcast directories that I put in the video description down below. That's the meat of the show, and you never know, you're gonna do some content there that will be beneficial to you, so you can learn a thing or two about real estate, life, tech, and even health and fitness. So check that out for me, please. And follow me on any of the socials. Get Instagram, check out my Facebook page, go to my website, www.theandresegovia.com. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.